Hello and welcome to B Shifter. I'm your host, John Vance. So glad to have you on board today. We will be talking with Nick Brunacini and Josh Blum about the new AVB Brunacini Command Training Center located in Phoenix, Arizona. We just got done holding our first event there, a meeting with all the Blue Card lead instructors, and we were very excited to be here. It's a very cool facility, so we'll talk to Nick about how the facility came about and also talk to Josh about some of the upcoming events. Of course, in the show notes, all the contact information is there, whether if you'd like to get in touch with Nick or Josh. And we'll have some photos and news stories attached there as well. So here we are, our latest discussion with Nick and Josh talking about the AVB CTC. We had the first event at the brand new AVB Brunacini Command Training Center in Phoenix at 818 East Osborne. It is a very nice facility. Josh and I both got here early today, and I got to tell you, when I got up this morning, I got up at 6 and I was looking forward to coming here. I mean, it's a treat to be here. So, Nick, how did we get here? How did you end up with your own building, and what was this whole process like?
I don't know, probably about 2008, 2009, the program went live. When we first started, we were teaching it at other command training centers around the country. We started at Clay and went there first. Then we ended up in Loveland with Josh and Otto. And so we would bounce around a lot. At one point, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 years ago, my brother said, if we had a place in Phoenix that we could teach, we would save a lot of money because we travel all the time. He says, we wouldn't have to travel. They could come here and, it would make things a lot easier. So we ended up renting a space down the street, a few blocks from where we're at now. And we in a short period of time, we came to understand that it didn't make things any less busier. We didn't slow down. All we could do is train twice as many people, because now you could train them in Phoenix. They could come here, but we were still doing the same work on the road. So we've had that facility, I don't know, 5-6 years or so that we worked out of, something like that, maybe 7. And then the program was established somewhat, and it was still growing. And at that point, all the administrative people you do business with, your accountants and everybody else, are saying, well, the next step is to have your own building. So about that time, we started looking, okay, we rent here, we can find something that's our own and kind of do what we want. And then the other part of that is when you rent, you got a landlord, so you're kind of at their mercy. So the stuff where they turn the air conditioners off at 5 o'clock and they don't turn them back on until 6 in the morning. And so you get in, it's 90 degrees in your office space. So all that was going to go away. So we ended up looking at a couple different places, made an offer on a few. And none of that happened. And then this was a office building that had a dozen or so tenants in it. It was for sale. We made an offer, they accepted it, and so we ended up with this office building. And then over the next year or so, demoed the thing and never really kind of got back to the point where it was being put back together yet. The demo took a long time. And then kind of a year into it, the COVID hit. So that kind of slowed things down a bit. So once that happened, right after COVID hit, I ended up buying out my brother. So he rode off into the sunset. So now you got this building that's demoed and you're trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to finish it? And it was kind of an interesting process because this is in an old part of town. And this building sits on 5 pieces of residential property. So it's not zoned to have a 2-story office building, but it had one anyway. So there were some challenges with getting permits and all the rest and how all that process worked. So anyway, over the next year or so, we were finally able to get the thing put together and kind of turn it into what it is today. So it's really, we have a home office now that we can, And here it was in the 90s that we started a production company to do the second edition of Fire Command. And so once that was done, and then we kind of turned that into Blue Card, that was really all our company has done since then, is we produced Blue Card, and then it was just kind of wrapping around Blue Card, Blue Card, Blue Card. Well, now we're starting to branch out and look at doing other things and becoming a production company again. So there's other work to be done, and we needed a place to do that out of. So one of the advantages and benefits that came out of this is we moved our technology people into the building with us. So Henry Ring is the guy that built all of our web presence over the years since we started. So he works out of here now too, and we're kind of partnered up to do a couple other projects moving forward. So just, and then keeping Blue Card up to date and buttoning that system up and keeping it refined is part of it too. So it kind of shoes into what we talked about the other day with we got a fixed facility to do the work out of, but more importantly is you have the right people in place now to kind of manage and deliver that work. So you got Josh managing the trainers program, you got Jeff King managing the curriculum. We got other people that are managing different pieces and elements of it now. So really my role basically is just to keep the Vance is doing social media and Greedo doing the magazine. All of you operate as at high a level as anybody's going to within those positions. I mean, you don't need a supervisor. It's easy being a boss in charge of an operation like this. I wrote this the other day. I have been successful because I have been on the coattails of successful groups of people. So that's, and you get those cats all together in one place, and you just kind of support that to keep it going down that road. So I think that's what that building gives us, is a house to put all this in and to kind of keep it all together. And that was the other part. When we took this over, it was more of a corporate look to it, a school maybe. And it's we're a bunch of B shifters, man. I mean, that means something. So it should look like B shifters live here. In fact, I was talking to Josh. The one thing that I would have changed is we would have made it big enough to put like 3 engines and a ladder in. So you could have like a big multi-company presence. But we'll fill it up with that many people. So in October, we're going to have the biggest group we've had in it of 40, 50 folks. So we're looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good fun.
Starting on the outside of the building, when you're on the Charlie side, there is a mural that is fantastic, paying homage to your dad and his philosophies. And that has gotten a lot of attention in local media. And I'll attach in the notes to those stories so everyone can see those pictures and see the stories, because they're really very, very cool. Tell us a little bit about that artwork out there and how that was done. Well,
there are a couple firefighters, the McHugh brothers, we worked with throughout. They're both retired now. And they're iron workers, but they're more artist type of guys. And we were looking for somebody. After my dad died, we were doing some work at my house, and my wife suggested we're going to paint this mural on our back fence. We should put your dad on it somewhere, And hey, we should. So I asked these friends of mine. I said, hey, do you know any in your travels any artists? And they said, yeah, we got a buddy who blah blah blah. So they hooked us up with this guy named David Dauncey. And so he painted some stuff for us earlier. We get this building, and we're kind of talking about what we're going to do and, what it's going to look like. And it looked, like I say, it looked like a corporate office building, the plans that I ended up with. So, no, this ain't us. So my wife, Michelle, started noodling and thinking, hey, you got this side, we've moved this, so the back of it's going to look like a fire station, and we could put a mural. And so she hooked up with David again and said, hey, this is what I want to do. And they did a couple, he did 4 or 5 different renderings until they got, and a lot of it was geographic shapes and things. And I thought, well, I don't know if that's more Palm Springy than fire station-y. So they ended up, he did the desert, the Southwest desert, so it was a bunch of red. And then he looked at the building and said, what are these doors going to be? And we said, those are going to be red doors. There's going to be a red gate. He said, okay, so it's red. Okay, that's what we did. So he came in, and over a period of about a month, he ended up putting the mural on. So, and it's on, like you said, the back of the building. So if you're driving down the street, you don't see it. But what we did is we painted a firefighter on the Alpha Delta corner. So as you drive by, you see this firefighter hooking up to a hydrant and a supply line go down the Delta side of the building to the back. So it's almost like an Easter egg hunt. So the first thing we saw on social media from that is it was a gal who works off of Osborne here, who drives by this every day, who's an artist. And so one day she says, I'm going to see what's back there. And she turned, and starts taking pictures. So it ends up on Instagram, and that's kind of when the cat was out of the bag. So that's when this is a different thing. I still don't think it's been exploited to the level it's going to be. Because, like I said, it's on the back of the building, and so you have to drive down a side street to see it, normally that most people don't drive down. So it's kind of a hidden little gem here across the street from a country club.
Yeah, it's very, very cool.
So one thing on that mural, a bunch of us Uber here every morning. So we get, dropped off and picked up. So we've had, 20 different Ubers in here in the last 4 days, and people get to the back of it and they're like, what is this? And I've had 3 or 4 Uber drivers already say, I'm sending somebody over here to see this. I've never seen anything like this. What do you guys do here? It's like, well, we're firemen, and we train firefighters and help them make better decisions.
And somebody who took too many psychedelics back in the day was involved in the color selection. Red.
Well, we'll show everybody the pictures because it is very, very cool. So you could check those again in the notes. So once you get inside, the very first thing you see to your left when you come in the back door, or there's an overhead door, is Engine 1, which tell everyone who doesn't know the background of Engine 1 what Engine 1 is all about.
My dad got hired with the Phoenix Fire Department in 1958. And back then, I think he went through like a 2.5-day academy maybe. Yeah. There's the hose. That's what the water goes through. There's the ladders. We use those to go up. Here's your gloves. That's where you ride. So the first place he worked was Station 1. He worked on Engine 1. He ended up staying there. The crew kept him. Said, okay, you're ours now. So he was a firefighter on Engine 1. A few years later, he promoted to engineer. He was on the list. The engineer from Engine 1 went away, and he went from being a firefighter on Engine 1 to driving Engine 1. Same thing happened when he took the officer's exam. He became the captain of Engine 1. So the first 10 years of his career was spent on that piece of fire apparatus. So at that point, I don't know, in 1960, whatever, he decided when this truck goes to auction, I'm going to buy it. So in 1977, it went to auction, and he paid $500 for it, and then stored it at a friend of his who had a construction yard for about the next 10 years. So, and his plan was always to restore it. In his travels, he would go around and he would go to musters, and he would see these pieces of antique fire apparatus that were, kind of the same model of his. So he started finding examples that he could buy that had stuff on it that he wanted on his truck. He's going to put disc brakes on it for a while. So he bought an old Mack that had disc brakes. There's some brass standpipe guns and a buckhorn boat gun that he's got on it. And that came off an old Mack that was in Boston that they used on the wharf as a war wagon, or whatever the Easterners called their big water engines. So he ended up with 3 other fire engines that were parked in his backyard, and then he built basically a garage, a big-ass garage for his fire truck. So over, the next 15, 20 years, he restored the truck. So once it was done, it was, it's as good as an example. It's as good as a restoration of a 50s model piece of fire apparatus that exists anywhere. It's obscene. So he had it in his garage. It was just his truck. It was like his I guess that was his addiction, was that piece of apparatus. So he kept it up until the day he died. So he's died here about, coming up on 4 years now. So that truck would sit. Well, that became the backdrop in for the Blue Card program. That's what we shot it behind. So that was really kind of And that was one of the hooks, is people going through the program, especially older people that had a little more clout in the fire department. It made it better that, okay, at least you're on an old piece of fire apparatus. So when we started this building, we just figured, okay, we'll move the truck over. We'll build a little station. So that's kind of what we did. In fact, this whole building, a lot of it started off to be a video set. We're a production company, so then we have a fire station we can shoot in again. So that became a piece of it. The apparatus floor where the truck is parked, there's a kitchen at the back of it, full operational, looks like a fire station kitchen. And we're going to rebuild his office kind of off the corner of the apparatus floor that he had at his house. So it'll have his home office there with all of his library and all the stuff he produced, his desk, everything else. So that area is going to be kind of more of a little museum, in effect, for Big Al, kind of his corner of the thing. So, and we can use it to shoot stuff. And we have a fully functional 1952, 1250 GPM L model Mac pumper if we ever need it. So I guess we could go rogue in the neighborhood and
start pumping water.
Yeah, just start flowing where we want to flow, baby.
You guys drove that here.
Yeah. We got a new caretaker for the truck. In fact, it's the guy that wired it 100 years ago. And he's getting ready to retire from the Glendale Fire Department for the second time. So we arranged with him to become the caretaker, and he made sure he tuned it up. He got an old buddy of his who used to work on those type of motors in the Navy. So we drove it from my mom's house about 7 miles here, and he didn't exceed 25 miles an hour because he just didn't trust the brakes. They were never good when they were new, so it's probably just as good as anything. But it made it, never broke down, got here, he backed it in, and that's where it sits.
I would not want that responsibility of driving that vehicle.
I have never drove that truck. I've only ridden on the back of it.
It is so cool. Oh. So if somebody is in Phoenix and they're not in one of our classes, can they stop by here, or is this going to be open to the public, or are people going to be able to check it out?
I don't know that we're open to the public, but if you want to come by and see it, you certainly can. Yeah.
Maybe just call ahead, make sure.
Well, we've had probably half a dozen old people much older than me stop by to see it that knew him and were contemporaries of his.
Fire service people could stop by and check it out.
Whenever they want. And feel free.
And there's merch here too. You've got Engine 1 shirts and Blue Card shirts and B-Shifter shirts. And
yes, there is.
Things.
We've had that stuff forever. In fact, that's the other thing is we're a production company. We're going to be tweaking the website. There'll be a store up on it, which we had 100 years ago. It got taken down for whatever reason. It's going to go back up. So yeah, there's a lot to see and do here.
So looking ahead, what kind of this isn't just for Blue Card certification. There's going to be other classes here. What kind of things do we have in the works as far as the future of the AVB CTC?
So the first big thing we have coming up is a CE event for anybody in the fire service. They don't have to be Blue Card certified, Blue Card instructor. Is anybody who's connected and working in the fire service. We're doing 2-day Mayday management classes starting in October. And it was really interesting that, well, one, we have a facility to do it, which is really nice. And then we were starting to think, how are we going to do things here and what are we going to do? So Mayday is why we do a lot of what we do, Mayday prevention, and let's keep that from happening. So we put together a 2-day Mayday management class. We got one in October, December, and January. And really the October and December ones, we posted those, and within 5 days we filled 80 seats in that class with people who are Blue Card and people who aren't Blue Card certified. So between those two classes, we got 80 people coming here yet this year. And then when those filled, we posted 2 more classes in January and February, and both of those classes, well, the January class is full and the February class is filling up. So we're doing those Mayday 2-day classes, which is, some review of Maydays, review of LODD events, connecting the dots of how that connects back to Blue Card. We've hooked up with Murray Laughlin at NIOSH, and we have him gonna speak on some things, and then we're gonna run Mayday simulations. So that's a piece of it, and then on the radar moving forward, we're going to do, expanded command ops, not just, getting into sectors and divisions and what does that look like, but expanded command ops, getting into the command van, which is going to end up being Nick and Chief Garrison are going to work on that and get that moving. So we're going to be offering those, here every month or every couple months, and then tying back in with Tim Dietz and some of those folks with health and wellness, really, of the fire service. But we have unlimited options. It's only limited to our vision, really. Anything we want to do, we can do. I've heard it said the last 4 days, it's our building. We can do anything we want to do here. So if somebody's got ideas, they can throw it at us also. But we'll be doing a CERT lab here every single month, and then we'll be doing at least 1 or 2 CE events that are 2 or 3 days in this building every single month, and then connecting with social media and doing other things, video vignette stuff, and keep pushing information out there to the service. So
it's a really sweet facility to be able to do all this, and it feels like you're in a fire station. It doesn't feel like you're in a college or a hotel, or what we had before was an office building next to a urology clinic. This actually feels like you're in a fire station, and the kitchens feel like that, and just a great feeling to be here. And of course, with anything that the Brunacinis do, it's first class. You've got refrigerators full of soft drinks and water and snacks and good food at lunch. And you're not going to go hungry. When you're here, you're definitely going to feel the hospitality. Backing up, Josh, just a little bit for the Mayday workshops, because we've talked so much on the podcast in the last few months about Maydays, and we've addressed it in different ways. What can somebody expect? You talked a little bit about simming. There's going to be some simulations in Murray Laughlin, but what is that class going to look like? Because it is filled up so fast, and if somebody's thinking about it, we want to give them a little better idea of maybe whether they should sign up or not.
So the Mayday management class that we've put together, it really starts with us reviewing the past. And this isn't mine. It's been said a gazillion times. We have found no new ways of killing ourselves. So part of it is reviewing some LODD reports starting in 2008 through 2018. So a 10-year period. And we got 5 LODD reports that we're going to break up. People are going to have an assignment actually before they come to class. So they're going to have to do a little work and connect to it before they even get here, just so we have hopefully have thinking firefighters, officers, chiefs when they get here. So it really starts with that. We're going to have 40 people here, and with how fast it filled, it's going to be 40 people who are thinking and very energetic. So the value of the discussion that's going to happen here and the energy in the room is going to be priceless. The value of that, I think, is great. Anytime we can network with people and learn from other people. As we look at those rosters, we have people coming to the classes who, within their own organizations, have experienced, the Maydays that, result in either LODDs or result in firefighters never coming back to work. Those people we have some of those people coming to the class. So, networking with them and learning from them, and, hearing back what they have to say and lessons learned, and them coming to learn, from others. So that's a big deal. And then, moving forward with it, looking at like, why are these things happening? How are they happening? What are we doing to make a difference? How are we going to prevent them from happening? Not just looking at LODDs, because LODDs indeed are down, but we continue, as I've said on the podcast 2 different times now, we are not looking at firefighters that are injured, and we're not looking at firefighters that are injured and never come back to work and are disabled for the rest of their life. Everybody wants to hang their hat on LODDs are down. That is awesome. And we don't talk about enough the numbers of firefighters hurt and never coming back to work. So, that's a piece of it. We talk about that. And then, after we look at, how did these things happen? How could we have prevented these pieces? We get into how does that tie into Blue Card specifically? What do we do with that? And with Blue Card, we already have a Mayday management, day that we do with the instructor class. We already have a Mayday management 5-hour online piece that students can go through. That's really just a cognitive learning piece that gets them ramped up to come to and be in a sim lab. So, we're going to go through, talk about that. And then we're going to get into best practice of best way to manage a Mayday is not to have one. So that's you got to be doing everything right before something goes wrong. And the extreme of that is if I got on the airplane and they handed me a parachute, it's like, what is going on? But they don't do that because the airline industry has a system, and bad stuff still happens, but we can prevent so many things. We need to make sure we're doing everything right before something goes wrong. So I mean that's where it's headed, and then we're going to run full scale Mayday simulations with multi-company operations. Talk about that. It starts with that initial radio report, that company officer making some good decisions, and it's just the fact of the fact of the fact that if the company officer fails to recognize some things in the front end, maybe sometimes no fault of their own because they were never trained, there's really no way to fix it. And the example, the fireman, the company pulls up, no 360, fires in the basement. They crawl through the front door, fail to recognize fires in the basement. They continue with their initial incident action plan, and the firefighter falls through. We're totally in a reaction to that incident, and it's really hard to fix that. So we're going to talk about connecting that task level. And what does that mean? The task level needs to do as many things as they can to plug the holes at their level. So what does the task level do to prevent the Mayday? And then we'll talk about tactical level. So when we put a tactical level boss in place, how does that fit in? And really it's like system integration, that they start to tie more pieces together within the event. And then we break it down. And then at the strategic level, what do they do? What do they do in that position to prevent the Mayday from happening? Shit is still going to happen. So when something does happen or somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do, we're going to get into how do we actually manage the Mayday. But the number one thing is Mayday prevention. That's where we really want to get to, is let's prevent that. But if something happens, what are we going to do? And it's the airline industry. We do these whatever number of things. We do all of these things to prevent something from happening, but we also train pilots that if something happens, that they're prepared to deal with that in a systematic way, just doing what they typically do. And when we look back just over 20 years, we've seen plenty of things. Maybe most recently, the flight, I guess, over Denver, half the engine flies off. And when I see that, I'm like, holy shit. And for them, I'm sure they're like, holy shit also, but they land the plane successfully and nobody's hurt, and planes ended up leaving later. And then they start a big investigation, and then they actually do something about it. And in some cases they say, oh, this is a ABC plane and this is a problem. And until we figure out what's going on, we're done with that. We're not doing anything with that. Those planes are grounded. And that's that learning from our experiences, which in our industry, we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. So that's what the Mayday class is going to kind of look like. It's A to Z. It's not just the answer. It's not just using the system. This is what's happening. Why is it happening? How is it happening? What can we do to fix it? And then actually going through the process of let's fix this. And if something still happens, how do we manage that? So.
One of the cool things you're planning on doing is you're reviewing a handful of NIOSH cases. People are going to read the reports. There's going to be discussion about those. And you really picked out from all over the country. They're just not one part of the country, different situations. And I can't believe how often we go to teach a class and we ask the class, how many of you read NIOSH reports? And 1 out of 10, maybe 2 out of 10 might say that they do. But everything we do has a basis of preventing the Mayday, and there was something bad that happened to cause us to operate the way that we do, right?
It's typically a chain of events. We talk about you drop one marble out of the bag, you can get it back in. You get 3 or 4 or 5 rolling, it's over. Like you're never going to get those marbles back in the bag. So I started before. It starts with that company officer getting there and making some good decisions from the beginning. And if it starts fucked up, it's going to end fucked up. It's really hard to fix it when you're pulling up later trying to get everything back under control. And in our system, sometimes, you just got to say it's over. We're going to regroup. We're retooling. Everybody come out. We're starting over. So, that's a piece of what we're going to do and what we're going to talk about in this 2 days.
Excellent. Hey guys, thanks for being here. If you can sign up for a class at the AVB CTC, go to bshifter.com. Check out the events that are coming up. It's a fantastic facility, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody out here that can make it. All right, before we go, I've got a deck of Timeless Tactical Truths from Alan Brunacini, and I'm going to shuffle the deck. I'm going to pull a card out, and we're just going to get your comments on them, okay? So the one I pulled out now is the 10 of Hearts. Do not combine offensive and defensive operations in the same fire area. We've seen this happen. I've been on these scenes. What happens when and this happens today. What happens when we do this?
When it happens, you want to be on the outside, not on the inside. Because the folks on the inside get blasted with water, conversion, whatever happens with that misdirected defensive attack on top of.
A piece of that is people got to be educated that Nick said it earlier. Phoenix never would hit a fire from the outside in the past, and then stuff changes. So just because you're flowing water from the outside doesn't mean you're not offensive. And
True.
There may even be a time and place where a company is inside and we're going to hit it from the outside. But that has to be very well coordinated. I just heard some traffic from the East Coast from a very large fire department where they had multiple companies in a hallway. They reported, hey, we're not making it. Conditions were getting worse, quite a bit of fire out some windows, going to the next floor. And the incident commander made a decision like, everybody inside, and he communicated to them, stand by in the hallway. Stand by, we're going to hit it from out here. Companies acknowledged, and they flowed some water from the outside. They knocked it down, and then they went back at it. Defensive, and this is a training piece. Defensive means we're going to stand outside. Everybody's going to be outside. We're going to flow a shit ton of water from the outside. It's over. We're not going back into that space.
Yeah, we've written off the property.
Not we're going to use a hand line and coordinate and knock this fire down while a company's stretching a line to get to where they need to go. But we're not going to flow master streams and large hand lines into a place, and we're not going to flow lines from the outside to the inside if it's not coordinated with all the companies. So, I mean, there's some definition piece there that people need to understand, because some people say they think that like defensive means just water from the outside. And it's like, no, defensive means we've written that thing off. We're going to burn it down. There shouldn't be anybody inside, and we're going to flow some ladder pipes and some big ass water on it. Not, we're going to use all the tools we have available and everything we've been educated on and things that have been proven that work, as long as we follow best practice. That what happened in that case I was talking about, flowed water for a minute. They knocked it down. It let the company give those companies inside a little bit more time. They got down that center hallway where they were able to get to the door, and it made everything better, and things went better. And very large East Coast. You can look it up. You can look it up yourself and find it online. You know that they did that.
It's the same fire area also. Yes. So that would kind of separate it even more. So they're in one area. Okay, you guys are where you need to be. We can hit it from the outside now. You know, that's really almost no different than sheltering in place. What we're doing, an offensive attack inside with victims behind closed doors and other confined places that they're safe in. But what you don't want to do is have an offensive fire attack going on and then some moron with their ladder from above bomb them. I mean, and that's just that will happen when you're not commanding the fire effectively. That's a freelancing operation.
And we hear that strip mall on fire, company gets assigned to go to a unit. They aren't being very specific in their communications. They aren't using Alpha Bravo, Charlie Delta. B and D sound the same. A company ends up in D exposure. They were supposed to be in B exposure, Bravo, not in Delta. They're in Delta. And it's like, we're going to be defensive in this occupancy space. And next thing you know, the communications is shut off the ladder pipe. We're getting pounded by water. And the incident commander's like, what the hell's going on? Well, it's your fault. It's the incident commander's fault. And really it's the company's fault in a way, because instead of saying the incident commander's a dumbass and didn't give us very specific assignment, and we didn't clarify, did you say Bravo or Delta? It would have fixed the whole thing. Well, instead they were getting pounded with 1,000 gallons a minute for a little bit. And then it was like, why are you in there? Well, it wasn't clear. That's what we thought you said. So
that's a case where they weren't doing anything right. Yeah. And it ended up getting them in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want to prevent workplace violence. And I've been on a fire scene where someone got hit with a master stream and it almost caused workplace violence.
Well, it could kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you hit somebody right with MasterStream, you can get.
All right. Josh and Nick, thanks. It's been a great discussion today. Look forward to the next one.
Thank you, Vance.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us on. See you next time.
And that wraps up this episode of B Shifter. If you have any questions for Josh or Nick Brunacini, their contact information located in the show notes. Also, you can go to bshifter.com to look at these upcoming events, both the Train the Trainer sessions and the Mayday Management sessions, and there will be more coming. So check out the B Shifter website events section for all the upcoming events at the Alan V. Brunacini Command Training Center. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe and tell your friends about B Shifter. And until next time, please be safe.